Have you ever heard of the term stereotypes? Maybe you did while at school, at work, or in a conversation. There are a ton of stereotypes, and about everyone has used them at least once or twice when meeting someone new. Even I can deny that. Stereotypes are truly everywhere, even in literature. That's right. Authors can use stereotypes while telling stories in a multitude of ways that can make reading more interesting and enjoyable for everyone. And that's exactly what we're going to look at today. In this short video, we'll be talking about the impact of stereotypes on literature and storytelling, using the book The Outsiders as a major example. Now, what exactly is The Outsiders? If you've never heard of it before, here's a quick introduction. The Outsiders is a novel written by Susan Eloise Hinton, an American author that started working on the book when she was only 15. The book takes place in Tulsa, a city in the state of Oklahoma, and it tells a story of 14-year-old Ponyboy, a young boy that lives with his two brothers, Soda Pop and Daryl. He and both of his brothers are part of a gang called the Greasers, that are constantly at battle with a rival gang, the Socials, also known as the Sox. Greasers live in the poorest part of the city, while the Socials in the more wealthy and safe area. In the novel, we follow Ponyboy in his adventures, watching him deal with his struggles and develop relationships with new and old friends. Now that you know what The Outsiders exactly is, let's look at how stereotypes influence the course of the story. But to do that, we're gonna first have to know what perspective is. Perspective is a fundamental aspect of writing, and it helps us understand more about stereotypes in writing. Perspective simply is the point of view from which a story is told. There are many different types of perspectives, and each of them influence how the reader perceives and assimilates information. But today, we are going to focus on the type used to tell the story of the outsiders, the first-person reliable POV. By looking at the world through the eyes of Ponyboy, we can get to know things, such as his thoughts and experiences, that wouldn't be accessible if the story would be told from the eyes of Soda Pop or Daryl. POV plays an important role in storytelling, and it will come in handy while analyzing the effects of stereotypes. Now that we know what perspective is, we can finally take a look at how it's used, along with stereotypes in literature. Now, stereotypes are commonly used in books, films, and other media that tell a story. They aren't apparent and require some looking to notice them being used. They simply make the character development simpler, briefly introducing a character using a known stereotype, and then, through story development, expanding its personality. Stereotypes can be helpful by simplifying the start of the story, keeping the reader interested and allowing the author to focus on the story. We can get a clear example of this character development in The Outsiders, with the character of Soda Pop. Many characters could be used as an example, such as Ponyboy, Cherry, or even Darrow, but Soda Pop is one of the simplest and most evident characters that have this connection with stereotypes. So we are going to use him for our analysis. At the start of the story, Soda Pop is depicted as a tough, joyful, and fun guy, who always thinks positively and isn't scared of speaking up when protecting his friends. We can say this with certainty by looking at his description and behaviors. When reading these descriptions, the reader gets a very simple idea of who Soda Pop could be. We picture a stereotypical, joyful, always positive jock that is nothing more than the typical 16-year-old. During the course of the story, we can notice a change in our perception of the character. Thanks to the perspective of Ponyboy, because he is his brother and closer to him, We can notice moments of weakness and sadness in this character, usually when others are not around. The things happening around him completely change the way he acts and communicates with others. We can clearly see that in the final part of the novel, when Soda Pop breaks down in front of his two brothers, telling him how he hates to see them fight constantly and would just like to live a simple and normal life. He's a clear example of how the author uses stereotypes to simplify the introduction of a character and expands it using other elements in the story. Stereotypes are present in many literary works and have many positive effects on story progression and character development. They allow the author to focus on improving and developing the storyline while keeping characters solid and realistic. Remember though, it's important to never keep these characters confined to these boxes stereotypes create. They can be very dangerous tools, creating biases and prejudices about the people you have never even met before. We are all complex beings with reasons behind our behaviors that you might not expect. Stereotypes can be used for good to make your lives less complex, and the characters of the outsiders are a clear example of this. But always remember to use them with caution, or else negative assumptions could stop you from meeting some amazing people.